God-given, and it's also
Gay. It's never been.
putting the squeeze. They make money on
excessive materialism and militarism. We know full well that racism is still that hound of hell.
Lovely.
I do feel like I'm getting sick slowly but surely. It's one of those things.
It's winter.
Yeah, I was also stuck in a bathroom for 4 hours for a performance.
Oh, right.
Not for personal reasons. Just maybe it is personal
reasons.
that I chose that life, that acting life.
I think that sounds good.
Yeah?
Yeah, sure.
Yay. So now that you guys know that I'm in a play that requires me to be in a bathroom.
Are you like clothed?
Yeah, I'm
what's
clothed
part
during
of
it because it's an interactive play. And I just found out everyone was in Sleep No More, and I was just like the only person that's never been in that show. Yeah, so you come into my bathroom nook. You help me get dressed. I'm dressed, but you just like help me button something. I'm spoiling the play, but then things happen where you interact with me. By the end, most people are mad at me or disappointed in me because it's about infidelity.
Do you defecate on? Oh.
Yeah. I'm getting ready to meet my lover.
Got it.
I just spoiled. It's okay. By the time this comes out, no one's going to see it because I'm getting ready to meet my lover.
Got it.
So that's what happens. That's
Salacious.
acting life for you guys. Anyway, welcome to Now in Color, the podcast that brings those who have been erased from history back to the forefront. This episode is brought to you by Brick Studios here in Bushwick, and today I'm joined by Jessica Yuen. Jessica is a native New Yorker born to a loudmouth and a clothes horse. She checks off all the Queen's Kids stereotypes. First generation, piano lessons, cutting class at Stuyvesant. A Parsons grad and sartorial problem solver, Yuen now tailors and designs for athletes and celebrities including Serena Williams, Ariana Grande, James Harden, Carmelo Anthony, and the Hadids. She recently designed costumes for the upcoming feature film Snakehead from Linsanity director Evan Jackson Leong. Welcome, Jessica.
Thanks for having me.
So we were just talking about how we met. We didn't meet, actually. This is our first time meeting.
Yes.
Because I stalked you from an audience. Sorry. That sounds so creepy.
Normal.
Yeah, but you were on a panel at Brick.
Yes.
Called Asian American in the Arts. And what were your thoughts on that 2 years ago? Now that I finally tracked you
From
down.
what I remember about it, the only thing I remember is having an argument with my boyfriend after
Really?
the fact. Yeah.
Oh my God. Can I ask what it was about?
It was like the classic, like, oh, but I didn't have any advantages because I'm white.
Oh my.
Because I was like, we
Sorry.
can't seriously be having this conversation right now. But I think it stemmed from one of the other panelists being somewhat well off, and since he's an immigrant, so his family came here with nothing, like a lot of our families did.
Yeah.
So he couldn't grasp at that moment, like, why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally understand that because I am also dating a white guy and I have been for 7 years now.
There's a big learning curve.
There is, and it's like it's really frustrating. Yeah, so as soon as you said that, I was like, I had like a trigger reaction of like all the fights I've ever had with my boyfriend. Sorry, Garrett, like if you're listening to this. But yeah, it's like a lot of the same. He has also said to me before, like, oh, I didn't grow up with any money or privileges and things like that. Why is it white privilege?
Yeah.
I'm just like blowing him up right now. I'm sorry.
I mean, it's hard to understand if you've never been in that position. So I think the longer we've been together, the more his eyes have been opened to that situation where it's like, it's not necessarily, oh, I had more money, but just simple as walking down the street, he's never been questioned, like, oh, where are you really from?
Yeah.
And I get it all the time.
Right.
And
exactly.
no one who meets us ever would suspect that he's the one not born here and
Yeah.
I am the one born here.
Yeah, and that's something I also tell him a lot too, is just like, just being a white man, you move through spaces differently than being an Asian American woman or anyone else, basically.
Anyone else, yeah.
Yeah, so it's great that I mean, it's not great, but I'm glad we could bond over
Yeah,
that.
there's so many things that come along with that.
Yeah, I remember when
setup.
we were first talking, you said there was something about just being an Asian American woman with a white guy and like how it looks.
It feels terrible in public.
It does.
Like, I don't like being in Asian restaurants
I don't either.
where you walk in and the waiters automatically like give you that disappointed look.
Yes. I thought it was just me. I'm so glad we could talk
there's
about
so
this.
much guilt that comes along with it. And it's like, no, but this one doesn't have an Asian fetish, I swear.
I swear. I did date someone with yellow fever
Yeah,
back in the day. Yeah. It feels pretty awful because you feel interchangeable with
You're
other
just a hole.
just a whole.
The right colored hole.
Yeah, I mean, this is like a topic that comes up a lot in this podcast of like interracial dating. How do you feel about it now in 2019? Like, do
I
you
still feel the same way about it.
Yeah.
It doesn't make me feel differently about him, but in terms of moving through public spaces or even my relationships with friends, I still feel a certain type of way. There's like a little bit of guilt, I want to say, because in high school, I had a ton of Asian guy friends.
Yeah.
And as soon as and we stayed friends, throughout college, but then as soon as I started dating Andrew, it was like a little bit different.
Yeah.
It felt like I betrayed them in a way.
Yeah.
So
I understand
it's
that
a little,
too.
it makes me sad.
Yeah, I had a lot of guy friends write me drunk Facebook messages being like, well, this is like in college, but still, don't do that. Don't ever. But like in college, we were friends. And then they would write me messages post-college and be like, like, I just felt like you didn't like me because I was an Asian guy. And I'm just like, that's not what it is. And like, fuck you for thinking that.
I get where they're coming from. I really, really do. But it's not fair because when an Asian guy friend starts dating a white girl,
Yeah.
I'm like proud or happy for them, like really proud, impressed even. But it's the complete opposite when girls do it.
Yeah, there's a double standard.
Completely.
Of course there is. And like even in movies and stuff, when an Asian guy is with a white girl, it's like, oh my God, this is like such a woke movie. But the other way around, it's like, oh my God, this is so typical. And like, like when To All the Boys I Loved Before came out, I was like, this is so cute. I love it. And then I was criticized for loving it because
I loved it.
Yeah. It was adorable.
Yeah, and it didn't really have anything to do with her being Asian, and I think that was what was refreshing about it.
Yeah,
she's just
exactly
a girl.
She was just a girl who loves love, and I was like, oh, that was like me in high school. So tell me a little bit about the queen stereotype, because we also talked about Awkwafina and that queen stereotype. So what are some more queen stereotypes that you feel like you live
I think,
or don't live?
I think when you're Asian and you tell people from Queens, they just automatically think you're from Flushing.
Yes.
I didn't have that experience.
I'm not gonna lie, I was just like, oh yeah, like maybe Flushing.
Yeah, no.
I didn't grow up here either.
I don't go to Flushing, but I think Flushing is also mostly Mandarin speakers or, Koreans. But I don't speak Mandarin. My family's mostly from Taiwan. So we're Cantonese and Toisan speakers. So like Manhattan, Chinatown feels the most like home to me as opposed to Flushing.
Yeah. So what were your thoughts when people were attacking like Awkwafina, for instance, when Crazy Rich Asians came out, and I think Sorority 2? Was she in Sorority Life or something like that?
I think it's called Sorority 2.
I don't know what it's called.
I
Sorry.
haven't seen it. I didn't see the first one either. But I should say that I know Nora as a friend before the fame.
Yeah.
So that's, to me, that's just who she is. I can't tell you when she started talking like that because she's always spoken with that. So I can't say that it's a Queens thing. To me, it's just a New York public school kid thing.
Yeah.
Like when I'm with a certain type of group of friends, that's how I talk because that's how I feel comfortable talking.
Yeah.
So if I wasn't on this podcast, I would probably be talking like that.
So are you talking in a different way on this podcast? Yeah. Much more relatable.
Exactly.
I was hearing this theory that like Asian Americans tend to exist in this triangle because we've been so invisible for so long, and that it's like you either act white, quote unquote, or you're black, quote unquote.
Right.
And there isn't just an identity of Asian American. Right. So I think that's why Awkwafina has been criticized so much, because we just haven't been around to the mainstream media.
Right. Well, we don't have a person on TV to look at and be like, oh, I can be like this person.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think it is a matter of choosing depending on where you are.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it offends people regardless.
Yeah. What
so if you act white, quote unquote, or normal to some people, then it's like you're choosing that side.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know.
It's unfair.
It's a rock and a hard place.
Exactly. Do you find that is also true in the industry you work in? You're in fashion and design.
Oh, completely. Yeah. Depending on what client I'm with, it always changes.
Yeah.
But I have to admit that I don't feel as comfortable being myself with my like stushy white clients as I do with clients of color.
Why do you think that is? Like, how could
I think that's just who I am. Like, my dad's a truck driver. Like, I'm not a girly girl.
Yeah.
And I'm not like put together. Like, I'm just used to being a Queens kid. I don't know.
Yeah. So how did you find yourself in fashion with like not many, at least growing up? I grew up in Riverside, California. It was like basically all white. I had like no Asian friends.
Oh, wow.
And like even to this day, I'm still like, I want more Asian friends. Like I have to collect them or something because I have this guilt. But yeah, even growing up, I was just like all the Asian kids that I knew or that my mom knew. They were just like, they're all getting into Harvard and like getting perfect scores on SATs. What is his name? Alan Yang went to my high school and he was like the Harvard kid. And he was like the guy that we had to look up to, basically.
So you're saying you didn't get into Harvard?
I did not get into Harvard. I'm so sorry. But you know what I mean? Like, I never, in my mind, like, writing, any sort of art or even fashion was, like, not even something that I could do. Like, I was just like, oh, I'll do it as a hobby.
Right.
You know? So how did you...
Safe zone.
Yes, the safe thing. And, like, that's what I told my parents, too. When they realize, oh, I write a lot, and they're like, oh, okay, is this going to be your career or is this going to be, like, a hobby for you? You know? So I'm just wondering, like, how did you find yourself gravitating towards fashion, eventually going to Parsons, which is amazing school too?
So my mom was a boutique owner in Hong Kong before she got married and moved here. So I I got lucky, I guess, and my parents were always really supportive of me pursuing fashion. I think I had my mindset on being a fashion designer from like a really early age.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't running around at all. I was just sitting and like drawing dresses and bags and shoes.
Yeah.
And what was it? I think high school, I got into LaGuardia for art and Stuyvesant.
The Fame School, is that what it's called?
Fame School. And there, I think that was like one of the first big life decisions I had to make. I was like, do I want to go the safe route or do I pursue the art thing? And I eventually decided to go to Stuyvesant and kind of like quell the worries because my parents were worried about me having a change of heart and it being too late for me to fall back on something. So I was like, I'm gonna, get the academic thing in order. And then if at the end of high school, I still feel like I'm going to pursue design, then I'll do that. Mm-hmm. And it actually ended up working out in my favor because I got into Parsons based on my academic record.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And I got I got an academic scholarship. So
to Parsons. Yeah. Yeah, that's a incredible thing.
Yeah.
I heard Parsons is expensive.
It is. And now they have a beautiful new building that I've never gotten to use.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
I've only went to Parsons once and I was like helping my boyfriend look at schools because he's a designer as well. Graphic designer, not fashion designer. So how did you find yourself making your own brand, Bedford Street Laundry? Is that right?
Yeah. I graduated in 2008 when the economy tanked. There were very few design jobs. Everyone was being let go. So I started styling. I didn't even know what styling was at that point, but I was interning for a brand called Onatitel. It was run by another pair of Parsons grads, and I started interning for their stylist after I ended my internship there. And then it was just kind of a series of weird events that led me to work with Diddy.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So his personal stylist, Derek Roche, realized I could sew. And so he kept hiring me for all the subsequent jobs. And it's just been word of mouth for the past 10 plus years.
Really? That's so cool.
Yeah.
Word of mouth marketing. Yeah.
It's just never saying no to weird jobs.
Always say yes. Is that your advice?
Yeah. Or, well, to like the point of you doing illegal things, I guess.
That's so interesting. Do you find yourself getting asked to do a lot of like the Asian American in the arts thing? And do you find yourself like becoming like this person to look up to in the arts?
No, not at all. I actually had to seek that out for myself. I wanted to work on a movie doing costumes, and Jordan Yu, who's a friend of Evan Leong, who's the director of Linsanity. He posted, I think it was like a Kickstarter or like a GoFundMe for Snakehead.
I remember Snakehead. Did that already come out?
It didn't come out yet.
It didn't come out yet.
I think we finally wrapped production, and I think they're waiting to like find out from festivals to see when, like, where it's going to premiere. So I saw the crowdfunding page for that, and I was like, do you know this guy? Because I want to do something with my maybe free time.
Yeah.
And see how it pans out, because I'd never worked on a movie before. So he like introduced us immediately, and I think production started a few months after that. And it was like one of the best times ever. It was so much work. I had no idea how long the hours were on a movie, and I found out really quick.
Yeah. I just started shooting a web series with some of my friends, and even that, I'm just like, I'm so tired. I can't imagine like an actual huge movie set. It is long hours. Thankfully, it's not in a bathroom for 4 hours, but it still happens. Yeah. It's long. Do you want to go more towards costume design for movies?
It was a great experience. I wouldn't mind doing it again, but I think it was such a unique experience because it was all like young Asian American crew and actors.
Yeah.
So I feel like that would be really hard to replicate, but I mean, maybe it's going to happen more and more.
Yeah, with
hopefully
Crazy Rich Asians. Did you see that movie?
I did, and I enjoyed it.
I loved it so much.
Yeah,
I cried
so much fun.
Many times. My boyfriend, speaking of my boyfriend, like, he didn't understand why my parents were crazy, basically. They didn't talk to him for, we've been together for 7 years. For those 6 years, they did not talk to him.
Wow.
Like, to this day, my dad still acts like he does not exist in a room.
You're joking.
It's so fucked up. Like, he'll be, in the kitchen or something, and my boyfriend will try to be really nice about him and be like, hey, do you need any help? And he'll act like no one said anything. And they speak perfect English. It's not that they don't understand. And for the longest time, my boyfriend was like, why are your parents... I mean, it is crazy behavior. I'm going to say that. But there's this part in the movie where he actually started crying because he actually like connected the dots of like being Asian American is different than being Asian. And it was the scene where they're on the stairwell and the mom, Michelle Yeoh's character, is like, you will never be enough. And he was like, oh my God, it's most...
She's talking to me.
Yeah, he was like, oh my God. Yeah, it is like a huge cultural thing of like, you have to keep like the harmony of the family. And like if an outsider, quote unquote, comes in, it's not going to be very easy.
Right.
Yeah.
I luckily have not had that issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. My parents are so nice to Andrew. Like, it's
that's
out
so
of
good.
Like, I get a little jealous sometimes. I'm like, Dad, why are you never that nice to me?
Oh my God. Yeah, it's only recently. My mom is now super nice to Garrett, but I think it's because she's like, it's time to have babies. And she's just like, this is the only way she's going to have babies is if I'm nice to this guy that she's been with forever.
And your dad's just like, nope, still holding out.
Yeah, still, I think the standard is like, I would have to date some like Taiwanese billionaire who just
Is your family Taiwanese?
Yeah, they're Taiwanese. But they speak Mandarin. And it's confusing because when I say we're Taiwanese, they're like, no, we're Chinese. But then when we're with mainland...
that type of...
Yeah.
Got it.
But when we're with mainland people, they're like, yeah, we're Taiwanese. It's like this whole weird rivalry that I still don't understand.
It's very complex.
Yeah.
Yeah. My mom's like, oh, I'm not typical Chinese. She was born in India.
Okay.
And then both her and my dad grew up in Hong Kong. So, like, people from Hong Kong have, like, this whole other fucked up, like, oh, we're special. Like, we were kind of British at one point. We're civilized. And then it's just like, okay, but, like, the rest of the world doesn't care about that, right?
Yeah,
like, to the rest of the world, we're still Chinks.
Yes, we still are. Yeah. I don't know. It's so complicated because I just found out, like, a couple years ago, I read this book called Green Island by, oh my God, what is her name? Shauna something. But anyway, Shauna.
Sorry, Shauna.
Sorry, Shauna. I remember your first name. Shauna Yang Ryan, I believe. Maybe. We'll check that. Green Island. But that's when I found out that when Chinese nationalists went over to Taiwan, they, like, murdered a bunch of Taiwanese people. And they did the same thing that communist China did to nationalists. Right. And when I said this to my mom, I was like, I had no idea this happened because we grew up, going to Taiwan every summer to visit our grandparents and like going to like the shrine of the first president of Taiwan and being like, oh, thank you
Like
for
Chiang Kai-shek?
Yeah, Chiang Kai-shek.
Wow.
And being like, oh, thank you for saving us.
Thank
and
you for leaving in a helicopter full of gold that you stole from the Chinese treasury. Thanks.
And like, thank you for like, and that was what I thought. I was like, oh, he's like the Obama of Taiwan. Up until I read that book.
Yikes.
And then I told my mom and I was like, I had no idea this happened. Like, why didn't you tell me? And she was like, I can't believe you're listening to like American propaganda. That never happened. It's not as bad as you think it is. And I was like, wow, my parents are brainwashed. That's like so crazy.
Completely. We're all brainwashed.
Yeah, we all are. That's why this podcast exists. Which is a great segue to your topic today, which is Wong Kim Ark. Sorry. Oh my God. Yeah. Where would you like to begin on his story?
Let's see. What do I remember about him? He, I know that he was a cook. Mm-hmm. He was born here. And I'm not sure if his father, I think his father was an immigrant. And I guess the jobs were kind of drying up in the Bay Area. So his father traveled with the entire family back to China for better opportunities. And then Wong Kim Ark, when he grew up, he came back to San Francisco looking for better opportunities. And he eventually found work as a cook, and he left to visit China, came back, no problems. Then on his second visit, upon re-entry, he was denied entry. And at the time, as a Chinese person, if you left the country, you needed to like set up a lot of vouchers for yourself when you came back, which meant you needed a white person to be like, I know this guy, I know his family, he grew up here, yada, yada, yada. So it wasn't enough just to have your papers ready. Like, you needed a vouch.
And he was an American citizen too, right? Because he was born in the Bay Area.
Yep.
Yeah. So he was denied entry. They made him turn around and get back on the ship that he arrived on. And then he ended up on a couple other ships. They just kept making him like leave one vessel and get on another one. And then eventually they took it to court, and they decided eventually that if you're born here, then no one can take your citizenship away, just based on birthright. Yeah. Yeah, and this is relevant now because it's happening again.
Yeah.
Yay, history repeating itself.
Yeah.
Not yet.
It's just a long history of, are you really American if you're not white?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you brought in this person because it's actually happening to my family now.
Wow.
My dad is a U.S. citizen, but he got his citizenship after living here for so many years. But now my mom, she's been on a green card, but every time she comes back and forth from Taiwan, she gets like detained at the TSA, and they're always just like, "Why are you like leaving America to go to Taiwan?" Just like asking stupid questions.
Right.
And finally, this one time, she finally said, like, oh, my brother, so my son, is a U.S. Marine. And they let her go based on, it was very similar to, like, the vouching system, being like, oh, so, like, your son actually fought for this country.
I guess that counts for something.
Exactly.
If only he was white.
Yeah. And even in stories that my brother has told me, even he had faced, like, so many, like, just, like, bullying shit. I'm sure the Marines is like fucked up in its own way, but like because he was Asian, they were just like bullied him or something like that.
And he's still a Marine?
No, not anymore. Okay. He is. He retired as a sergeant. Wow. Yeah, but he was in Iraq and everything. Wow. So, yeah. So
thank you
for that vouch. We can use him as a vouching system apparently. Yeah. So what drew you to this story in particular?
I mean, I just thought it was so relevant to everything that's happening now. It's like, do you have a right to asylum if you're not white? Like, do you matter? Like, do you have value as a human being?
Yeah.
Like, why is that a question?
Yeah. Do you find that your family has ever faced discriminatory practices like that growing up? Do you like have that in your childhood memories?
Sure. I mean, there was a ton of bullying when I was in junior high, I'd say.
Yeah.
And then even I think my senior year of college, there was some like friends of friends that, you know, ching chong changed me in like a whatever drunken episode.
Oh, jeez.
And of course, I don't take those things lightly.
Yeah.
So it turned into a big scene, and it somehow became my fault.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
I like lost a best friend over it.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
How is it your fault?
I still don't know to this day.
Oh my God. Fuck that person.
Yeah.
I'm glad they're no longer your
Same.
friend. Yeah. I think for me growing up, it was like, I didn't realize that I was the only Asian until there was this moment in high school. This is funny because it feels like a movie where it was our senior prom and the student committee that comes up with prom themes was unveiling a theme, and it was an oasis in the Orient. And they like had this banner that they pulled open that like
scroll.
Yeah, it was like Oasis in the Orient. And then they threw fortune cookies at us, like, you know, like a confetti
You're
thing.
joking.
And I just remember like in slow-mo it coming down, and I was just like, oh my God,
I hope Nora
awful.
is listening, because I feel like this could be a music video for her.
Yes, please make
Fortune
it
cookies
into a
as
music
confetti.
video. It was so funny. And then I was just like, oh my God, this is awful.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I felt like my friends did not treat me differently up until that moment where I was like, oh my God, I'm the only Asian American, one of the only Asian Americans in this school. And then in college, that's when I felt it more, because it was like, I feel like this like northeast white liberalism that's just like, they don't know that they're being racist, but it's like the microaggressions. That's when it started happening, when they're like, oh, you're a cool Asian. And then that's when I was like, what does that mean? What does it mean? Yeah. And like, you know, kind of making comments about like, oh, like all the Asians just like hang out together and speak in their own language. And I was like,
Is it because you guys don't want to talk to us because we're weird looking and eat weird shit from our lunchbox?
And that's the thing. That never happened to me in high school, the lunchbox thing.
Right.
Like, people loved my food because they're like, oh my God, your mom's such a good cook. Like, can I eat some of this? So they were always like into that. So it wasn't until college where I was just like really started questioning.
Where did you go to college?
I went to Cornell, which is like, oh, I'm sorry, Cornell, if this is libel or whatever. But it was like very white and conservative in its own way. And I didn't really enjoy it that much because that's when I was just like, oh, I feel like I'm in my skin for the first time. And, you know, that's where I dated terrible boys who had...
With Asian fetishes.
Where I was like, oh no, this is bad. So, yeah.
Have you ever dated an Asian guy?
No, that's the thing. And I think that's why
That
I feel
adds to your guilt. Yeah.
What about you?
I have dated an Asian guy, and it was... it was a Korean guy, which makes... I understand that it's... Maybe that like kind of scarred me, because he was one of the like Jesus freaky ones.
Oh, yeah.
But also with like kind of like a anger thing.
Yeah.
He was Korean, period.
I know what you're talking about. And that's the other thing that a lot of people don't understand, that Asian Americans aren't just like a monolith of one personality. Yeah. Like, just you saying, oh, he was a Korean guy with anger issues, I'm like, I get it. Yeah. Because misogyny acts in different ways, comes out in different ways.
I mean, guys are guys.
Yeah, guys are guys.
But I hadn't been surrounded by Asian peers up until high school. So when I got into Stuyvesant, everyone was Asian. So it was the first time I was like, ooh, Asian guys are hot. Like,
Yeah.
they exist.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of like one of the first guys that like made a move, and I was like, okay, like let's see how this goes.
Yeah.
And it was weird.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Why was it weird?
Mostly like the Christian thing was
yeah.
weird. I like ended up at a Seekers meeting.
What is that?
It's like a Christian whatever.
Okay.
thing. Like I went to one, and that was the only one. People like closed their eyes. Someone was like playing an acoustic guitar.
Wow.
And I looked around for the closest exit. I was so freaked out. I was like, this is not the place for me.
Yeah. I went to a Christian school from kindergarten to 6th grade, like this elementary school. I don't know why my parents put me in. They were like, there was no one of color in there except
Right.
for me. That should have been like my first red flag of like, oh, I'm different. But
But as a kid, you don't think
Yeah.
you're different until somebody tells you so.
yeah, which I'm glad no one like pointed out. That probably would have traumatized me. But the reason I stopped believing in God, it's actually really dumb. It was
It's
one of
silly.
one of my friends. She was my best friend. I also have a best friend breakup story. She like took me into the cabin in the woods with her family, and it was around the time Harry Potter came out, and I was obsessed. I was like, I love it. And then it was like her way of giving me an intervention at like 11, 12 years old, and being like, if you like Harry Potter, you're gonna go to hell. And I was like, what?
Oh, witchcraft.
Yeah, witchcraft. Because she went to one of those churches that like taught that J.K. Rowling was like a witch, and like this was
She was Catholic, I assume.
no, she's definitely Christian. It was like one of those big mega churches that Christians
Like a
have.
Justin Bieber church.
Yeah.
Got it.
And I was just like, well, I think it's fiction, so it's fine. And she's like, yeah, but in the Bible it said that you can't like practice which, and I was like, well, I'm not practicing, I'm just reading about Hogwarts and it's not real. And
Just like your God.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Sorry, guys. Not really.
And then she was just like, oh, yeah, we can't be friends anymore. And I was like, oh,
Cool,
my God.
bye.
Okay, bye. I love Hogwarts too much to leave. And then I went to a public school after that. And I was just like, oh, okay, that whole thing was like not for me.
So, I mean, I feel like sometimes you just want to be like, they're just words on a page. Mm-hmm. But to them, it's not just words.
Yeah, it's all different. And yeah, it's weird. It's weird. I still think about that. And I'm like, does she remember how she broke us up because of Harry Potter?
I remember there being like a Jehovah's Witness in my elementary school. And I think I reconnected with her maybe at the end of college, and she was like, I'm really sorry about like all the weird shit that my family did. And they like apologized to me about making all the siblings be Jehovah's Witnesses.
Wow.
Because they had no idea what was going on.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I used to be very like, I went through like the definite like atheist phase. And then I'm just like, as long as they're not bothering me and telling me that I can't read Harry Potter, I think I'm good.
No, like do whatever you want in your, alone time.
Yes.
But I don't want to hear about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Same. Just like you don't want to hear about how I don't believe in it.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah. But I'm sorry. We like went on a huge tangent.
Yes.
But you dated this guy who's too Christian.
Too Christian and just real clingy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It was like, I'm Christian, but I also really want to have premarital sex. And I'm like, nah, I'm good.
No. The thing I got was I went on dates with a lot of Asian guys. And this was also in college. So this is where my identity was all fucked up. And they would say things like, oh, you're very white for me. And like
Interesting.
during our lovely dinner, which I thought was just like, this is great. I think this is going to happen. And they're like, oh, you're just like very white. And I'm like,
You
what
have
does
too many
that mean?
opinions.
Exactly. You have too many opinions.
I think that was my problem.
Yeah.
With Chinese American guys is they were okay with the way I looked, and then once I opened my mouth, it was like, no, that's not happening. I am my father's daughter. Like, it's just not happening. I'm not a lady. And I won't ever be.
Yeah, it sucks. I mean, I've been with Garrett for 7 years, and it's just like I feel like there is no more opportunity to, and like that's the thing I feel like I always want to say, like, because of the guilt of dating a white guy, I always want to say, like, it's not that I'm not into Asian guys, it's just like the timing has been all off.
Right.
I feel like, but I don't know if it's just me.
I mean, I wish there was an opportunity at some point for me to date a Chinese American guy that I really liked, because the idea of my parents being able to communicate with like a Cantonese guy in my head sounds great.
Yeah.
Because my dad, I'm an only child, so my dad, of course, always wanted a son and like to like shoot the shit with and like drag race with, all that. And I guess he didn't have that opportunity with me. So in my head, I dreamt about like having a boyfriend that could, you know, scratch that itch. And that never happened. But I mean, thankfully now Andrew and my dad get along. Like, they're pretty much the same type of dude.
Yeah.
So that's nice. But I know that my dad's off-color jokes are never gonna have like the audience that they deserve besides me.
Yeah, I definitely think about that too, because even though they speak English and everything, it's just like, it's just like that cultural thing where I'm just like, I really wish that like you could understand this and
like
be a
the
part of this.
references aren't
exactly.
the same. Yeah.
Because growing up, I actually watched a lot of like Hong Kong comedies,
too.
and like we quote that all the time, and it's just like, especially those like vampire movies. Did you ever the jumping ones?
I wasn't into the vampire movies because I'm a pussy. I was into like the Stephen Chow, like real, you know, not classy kind of comedy.
Is it have you seen the one where it's it's like he's like a mob boss? Am I thinking of the same one? He was like in
There's a lot of mob boss.
Yes. But we tend to like quote those movies, and it's just like these like odd things that like translated into English, it like
they're just
doesn't
not that
make
funny.
sense. Yeah, exactly. It's just like this odd
The context is like too deep. So.
Yeah. But I totally understand that too. Oh man. I'm so glad I stopped you from the audience. We have so much in common. Oh, yeah. I wanted to ask you if you had any similarities between the history that you brought in with your family immigrating here. But I think we went on a tangent about like boys, which is fine.
I don't think my family had a lot of issues with citizenship, thankfully. But they were the only Chinese family on the block for a really long time. And I think before my dad was married, they had two big dogs, maybe without like a, I don't know, do you need like a license to own dogs or something? Or a permit? I don't know, like papers. And the dogs didn't have papers. So like there was like a permit Patty across the street.
Oh my God.
I think her name was Lila, and she would always like peer out from her blinds just to like see what my family was up to, if they were doing anything wrong. And she like called animal control and reported the dogs. And no more dogs.
Oh my gosh, so they took the dogs away.
No.
God, that makes me so angry because I have a similar story. I'm also living in a neighborhood, only Chinese family. My dogs would bark, you know, as dogs do, like, but during the day. And like they would talk about that, the homeowners association.
Oh, Christ.
And also they were like, there's like oil stains on your driveway. And they would like be on us about these oil stains in the driveway. And of course, like growing up, I would have to like translate these letters from the homeowners association. And they'll be like, yeah, if you don't have these oil stains clean, then we're going to fine you like X amount of dollars or whatever.
And then we'll deport you.
Yeah, exactly. And and also like they were like, and your house isn't painted the right color, even though it's like a normal color. It was like this Victorian looking house. So my dad was like, okay, what color do you want me to paint it? I'll like fucking paint it, basically.
It's too chinky. Whatever color it is, you did it. It's chinky. We don't like it.
Exactly. Like every month, I just remember like receiving some letter and being like, what is going on? And like there was a community pool. So my friends and I would go swimming, and then they'd be like, like, and they would come to me, the only Asian kid, and be like, whose house, like, do you live in this neighborhood? And I'm like, wow, of course I live. Like, but none of these white kids are going to ask them about, like, if they live in this neighborhood, but, like, if I live in
Did you hop the fence, Sandie?
Yeah, they're just like, how did you get in here? Like, are these your friends? And I'm like, yeah, it's like, it's my birthday or something, you know, because my birthday was in the summer. So I was like, yeah, I'd have a pool party. And I'd be like, what the fuck? Yeah.
Were you confused, or did you know exactly why?
I was confused. I was just like, I think these like old white people are just like really angry and like really into our oil stains. And then it wasn't until my mom had to be like, no, it's called discrimination. And she was like, that's the first word I learned when I came to the U.S. and that's what it is. And she was always like, whatever would happen, she would always call it out and be like, no, that's discrimination. So good job, Mom, for being a badass.
That's
because I was just like, I don't know why they're so angry at us about our oil stains, our painted houses.
I feel like my mom's kind of the opposite, where she like sides with the other sometimes, where it's like, oh, well, it's because we didn't do it correctly. Or like if she's talking about like newer Chinese immigrants, like my parents don't like Fujianese people.
My parents don't like anyone, I feel like, from China.
And it's just like, okay, but you realize that no one else can tell us apart, right?
Yeah.
So there is no them not doing it right. If they're not doing it right, we're not doing it right. So it's a battle that we're not winning.
Yeah.
Ever.
My parents were, I think maybe that's why they're so like, they were so like against Garrett, but my parents were always like very quick to call out racism. And my parents forced me to go to Chinese school. I don't know if you ever had to go to Chinese school, but they
didn't learn a thing.
Yeah, same.
Oh, except how to play Chinese poker, which I'm very thankful for.
I don't even know how to play Chinese poker.
Did you learn Chinese though?
Yes, I did. Well,
that's why
my parents refused to speak to me unless I spoke Mandarin in the house. So I am grateful for that because now I can speak Mandarin. But like before, if I was like, I don't know how to say this in Chinese, I have to say it in English. They're like, oh, I don't understand you. Like,
oh wow,
yeah. So they were very strict in that way.
Wow.
And I did Chinese school up until like senior year of high school. And then in college, there was like a language requirement. So I was just like, oh, I'm just going to keep learning Chinese. But it was like so fucking hard in college. I like almost failed Chinese because it was all poetry and all this like other shit. And I was like, oh my God, you want me to memorize like a poem a day and like be able to write it and recite it?
Can you write it?
Not anymore. I can't. I have to like be really immersed, and I kind of wish I could.
I definitely regret not paying more attention and not going continuously. To Chinese school. I would do it for like a summer and then forget it all. And then start again.
It's hard.
But I can speak Cantonese fluently, but reading and writing is like a whole different ballgame.
Yeah. Whenever I am like in Taiwan, I kind of wish like, oh, I wish I could read the signs and like read a menu and not be like, what is this? Do you have a picture of it?
Well, in Hong Kong, I get to cheat because almost everything has English and Chinese.
Right. I've never been to Hong Kong, and I would love to go one day.
Best place ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it there.
Have you been to like other places in like mainland?
I've been to parts of Canton, like Guangzhou, but that's it. I haven't been further than that. But I get really angry when I step onto like mainland soil because the whole like lining up thing and like stepping out of the way when somebody steps off a vehicle, that's not a thing there.
Really?
So I immediately just want to fight somebody, and that's not healthy.
Yeah. I'm like scared to go because I've like heard stories about like the pollution there, and I'm just like, I don't know if I want to like go to a city. I would want to go to like the country, but I don't know if I'm romanticizing the country too.
Yeah, I am only interested in going to the country.
Yeah.
Because like cities, it's not going to get better than Hong Kong. It's just not. Yeah.
I really want to go to Hong Kong.
It's so much fun.
What's something you would recommend for someone who's never been?
In Hong Kong?
Yeah.
Definitely eat every hour or so.
Yeah, that's the same in Taiwan too.
Yeah. And then I guess if not if, you're gonna be sweating your ass off.
Yeah.
Just go into the mall. You have to pass through them to get to the real world. So
We have to pass through the mall to get them.
yeah. So
What does that mean?
For the past, I want to say 10 years, instead of making it easy for pedestrians, they've kind of built street, what do you call them? What do you call overpasses?
Oh, okay.
So they've built overpasses for pedestrians so that cars can move more freely. And a lot of these overpasses are connected by malls.
That makes sense because I have this like, I watch a lot of Hong Kong movies. Have you seen Infernal Affairs?
Yeah.
I was obsessed with that trilogy. So when The Departed came out, I was really angry. I was
Because
like,
it was boring.
because it was terrible. Yeah, it was terrible. And I was like, oh, they like took away the artistic element of it, which was it's about hell and not about these like exploding things in Boston. Ugh, I don't know. I hated The Departed.
Not about Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah.
Or was Matt Damon in it?
No, Leonardo DiCaprio.
Right.
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah, I hated The Departed. I was just like, oh, I'm so angry that it won that Oscar. But anyway, I remember like a scene where they're like on those overpasses.
Yeah.
And I guess I always wondered, like, why did they keep walking in these overpasses?
Yeah, it's a fun place.
Yeah.
And the train system is fantastic. So
Better than New York.
so much better. Everything is air conditioned, and you're never waiting longer than a minute for a train. Mm-hmm. So that's great.
Do you ever see yourself living in Hong Kong?
I do, but I don't know what I would do for work out there. Because what I do out here, almost everyone's mom can like sew in Hong Kong. Like, I'm not a valued member of society there. I can't read Chinese. I can't, write in Chinese, and I can sew. Like, that's okay. You get maybe $2 an hour.
Oh, so like is design like styling and is not that big and
I think styling is, but I don't think it pays nearly as well as it does in America.
yeah. Oh, good to know.
Yeah.
Because I always have these like visions of living abroad somewhere, and
Same.
I'm like, "Ugh, maybe I can't.
Yeah.
I'm like really obsessed with Scandinavian countries, even though it's just like a sea of white people. But I'm like, I think I'd like living there a lot because I studied abroad in Copenhagen.
I thought that, and then when I finally went, I was like, no, this is a little scary.
Yeah. Where did you go?
I went to Norway twice last year, and then Sweden on the same trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a sea of white people.
Yeah.
And the food's not great.
I went to Norway. I have this funny story of like my friend. Is he my friend? I guess he's my friend. Sorry if you're listening to this. He's my friend. I just don't know him very well. I feel like
An acquaintance.
yeah, my acquaintance. I met him at South by Southwest, and I had just like finished studying abroad in Denmark, so I was like on a Scandinavia high. So I was like, oh my God, you're from Norway? I love Scandinavia. We should be friends. And then like we were friends in South by Southwest. And then I was here in New York. A startup I was working at like just like went bankrupt. And then like everyone got fired that day. And then I was just like, you know what? I need to leave New York. So I was just like, I'm going to go to Norway. And then he was
The
like,
most
what?
expensive place in the world.
And I didn't even think about that. I was just like, I love Scandinavia. I'll go to Norway. And then he was like, oh, my parents live in the Arctic Circle. You should check that out. So I was like, totally, I will go. So I just like booked a ticket to Norway. like got on this plane to Oslo and then went another 2 hours to Alta and then took this like 4-hour bus ride to the Arctic Circle. And I met his parents and I was like, oh my gosh, you guys are so cool. They live in this tiny village in the middle of nowhere. And
it's beautiful.
And it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
And they like basically were like, oh my God, you're like the daughter we never had, basically. So I'm better friends with his parents than I am with him.
Cute.
And we text and like send each other Christmas cards and everything. So that's my one connection
jealous.
to Norway.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, really beautiful there.
It is.
Everything looks like a postcard.
It does.
So, but yeah, it's hard for me to live anywhere where it's the same, like it's where it's very homogenous.
Yeah.
Which is why it's hard to leave New York, I think.
Yeah, it is really hard to leave New York. That is because my boyfriend is also from California, and I feel like he's more like, I really miss California. I want to go back to California. And I'm like, oh, I feel like I love New York, though. There's like nowhere else that can replicate this diversity and like
you really take it for granted when you're here, and especially for people who are like native New Yorkers, you think that you can go anywhere and it's relatively more or less as diverse, and you go maybe 2 hours outside of New York and it's not like that at all.
No. Like upstate New York is haunted. I'm pretty sure it is. It is haunted up there. Like too many wars have been fought up there. And
it's like, oh, hey, there's a Confederate flag. That's fun.
Which is weird because this is the North.
Yeah.
Why are there Confederate flags up there?
They're racists up there.
They are racist up there. Yeah, I feel like that's why I didn't like college that much, because it was in Ithaca, New York, and people there are weird.
Walmart people?
No, they're like very hippie-ish. They have their own currency in Ithaca. And there's just nothing there. And they have their own currency.
What does it look like? Is it like wampum?
It's like there's just one little downtown area, and it's like a block long.
No, what does the currency look like?
What does it look like? I have no idea. It looks like Monopoly money. And like you can buy things with it and like it's real.
Is there a bank you can get it from?
I guess the Ithaca Bank? I don't know. That's also another thing. I never left campus, and campus was like huge and had too many there was like gorges. A lot of suicides happened there, which was bad.
Fun.
So it was just like bad. I should have just like installed sad lamps all over my room because it was so dark, and I was just like, this is awful.
Did you have like were there Asian sororities at your college?
Yes, there were Asian sororities.
Were you a part of those?
No, I wasn't a sorority. Were you a sorority girl?
Absolutely not.
No.
Well, I mean, I didn't get a chance to be, but even if I did, I don't think.
I don't think I could do that.
Very not photogenic, so all the posed photos, it's like an automatic no for me.
I heard this rumor, and I don't know if it's true or not, where when you rush for these sororities, they would like make you sit on a laundry machine to like shake your fat. This is awful.
Shake your fat.
Yeah, and be like, oh, you need to like cut this out. Not cut it physically, but just like lose it basically to join our sorority. And I don't know if that was true or just some like crazy fucking rumor. But when I heard that, I was just like, yeah, I would never join a sorority because that's fucked up.
I mean, I guess I don't hang out with like a ton of girls in the first place. So I think immersing myself in that, it might drive me a little insane.
Do you feel like so most of your friends are dudes?
I feel like it's pretty evenly split.
Yeah.
And the female friends that I do have also are not like sorority types.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. In college, I also only had guy friends, and then afterwards, I was like, I need to collect both Asian friends and female friends. I'm just collecting friends, basically. But yeah, I am drawn more to guy friends. I don't know.
I feel like I don't have to be as sensitive. Just about the things I'm talking about or the things I say to them.
Yeah.
Like if I tell them I don't like their hair, we're not going to not talk for a week. And they would at least tell me why if they were angry with me.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
again, it's like the whole my dad raising me like a boy thing and like not having a filter.
Yeah. I feel like having an older brother who is like super into like video games and like war. I mean, he wasn't into war. But like war video games and like paintballing and stuff. I feel like I grew up with that as the influence of like, oh, I get along better with guys. But I think like after college, I was just like, I just wish I could like talk to someone about my hair and things like that and be very emotional without it being awkward or like, stop being so sensitive. And I feel like that's where I developed a lot of like my vulnerability was with other women that I can't seem to find with guys. We're pausing.
My asshole computer just like went to sleep.
Oh, no worries.
You're good. I think we only missed like 2 seconds.
That's okay.
That's okay. Are you enjoying our conversations, John?
What? I'm on Instagram.
Oh, you're on Instagram.
Don't mind us. Slide into the DMs.
Oh, are we back on?
Yeah.
We're back.
Yay.
I don't remember what I was talking about.
Vulnerability and female friends.
Yes. I found that being with other women made it easier to be vulnerable. Yeah. And I wanted to talk about my hair at some point.
Instead of asking a guy friend and they're like, I don't know, it looks the same.
It looks the same.
I think I needed to find friends that I can be vulnerable but not whiny with. Mm-hmm. I thought that was important for me. Because I don't know what to say. Like when people are just in pieces, I'm like not a comforter. Me and my best friend don't hug.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What is that like?
I don't know.
Yeah. I started doing this like weird thing where I go in for a hug and then I'm like,
Just
maybe
kidding.
not, because people don't like hugs. Now I know.
Yeah. It's not that I hug other people. It's just that me and her, like, we've never had that type of relationship. And to start now seems bizarre. Yeah. And now she's married and like am I allowed to say that she's pregnant? I don't know.
Oh, I mean, you can ask her afterwards and I could cut it out.
But yeah, I feel like she's going to have a kid and it's like, am I going to hug her kid? I feel like I should, unless it's an asshole.
Yeah.
In which case I won't. So yeah, now she's married. I don't hug her husband either because it would be weird to hug her husband and not her. So it's a whole weird thing. And he's like, you guys just need to like,
just hug.
Yeah.
Oh my
and
gosh,
just
I want you guys to hug. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes I find that maybe I'm like the person in the friend group that like has too many feelings.
Oh.
Yeah.
You don't seem like a whiner to me though.
I think I just like want people to feel things with me all the time. So I feel like
should do like acid or whatever it is
that makes sense, because when one of my friends and I, when we did MDMA for the first time, it was like at a house. At a house too. And it was my first time, so I was like, oh, let's just try it at a house because I don't know how I'm going to react on this. And we had been friends since middle school. So we ended up tripping so hard that we were like holding each other's hands and just saying, I love you so much for 8 hours straight. And like, I don't even know where the time went. And like the next day we had to go to the Orange County Fair. So like there were like these roller coasters and we were still like tripping out and being like, oh my God, this is too intense. But yeah.
I just love you so much.
Yeah. And we were like near tears, just being like, I just love you. And I was just like, and I remember we called Garrett a bunch of times because we called Garrett right before it hit. And we were like, oh, we took MDMA or whatever.
Did you have a chaperone?
Yeah, it was my brother. Sorry. My brother provided us these drugs.
Nice.
And
thank you for your service.
Yes, thank you so much. But we were like on the phone with Garrett, and I think Stephanie was talking to him. And I think all he said was, oh, I'm going to sleep. Because he was in the Bay Area at the time, and I was in Southern California. He's like, I'm going to sleep. But I think in her like high, and she was also drunk, induced mind, she took it really hard. She was just like, why are you giving me an attitude right now, Garrett? And then like hung up on him. And then he just went to sleep. But then the whole time she was like, I think Garrett's mad at me. Like, we should call him. So we called him like 40 times throughout this night and just kept leaving him these voicemails being like, we're so sorry if we were being like really rude to you. We just love you. It was like this whole saga. And the next morning he was just like, no, I just said I was going to sleep and that was it. It was like, but yeah, I think I'm like a feels person.
Are you like that without the help of MDMA?
I think so, because like I have a group of these girlfriends that I'm gonna, maybe I won't name them, but they're like very like rational. They're very smart, which is great.
But you want them to hug you.
But I want like feelings. I want to like talk about your like depths of your emotions, and they're like, oh, we just don't think that's like logical to do so. They don't talk like that. I'm like exaggerating.
Like, are your friends grandmas?
Yeah, and I make this joke, and I'm just like, come on, we're not robots, we're humans. Like, I want to know how you feel about it. And I think I broke one friend because she started to feel more and like cry more, and I was like, yes. It's like,
I'm a total crier.
Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, I cry at like commercials. Like there, I have a lot of I guess tear triggers.
Yeah, I was just telling John, I think before you came, that I just watched Bow for the first time over the holidays.
Yeah, a mess.
I sobbed for like an hour straight. I could not stop crying.
It's too much. I can't. All the feels.
So many. Like, yeah, just because it was so close to I don't want to spoil it for listeners who haven't seen it.
Fucking go watch it. What is wrong with you people?
Well, if you haven't watched it, the eventual wife was like this white woman. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like me. This is how my parents feel about me. Yeah, so, but yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing that I've been dealing with lately is I'm planning a move with my boyfriend, and we're only moving maybe like 6 blocks away from my parents' house. But since I live with them now, it feels like I'm abandoning them. And it's hard dealing with those feelings like every day.
Yeah. It's hard. I think about that too because my parents are in California. And every time I go back, they're like, when are you moving back here? And I'm just like, I just hate it here. I don't see myself thriving in like Southern California. Yeah, it's hard.
Are they still in your hometown?
No, they're in like Temple City area, which is like a lot of Asians, which is cool. It's fine. It's just like there just isn't that culture in SoCal that I'm
it's like lacking a pulse there.
Yeah. And I feel like this is like a gross generalization, but I feel like most people are just like into working out and yoga and eating clean, and that's basically it.
Sounds like SoCal.
Yeah. And it's just boring. Like, everyone looks very pretty, which is great. Good for you. But I'm just
it's hard when that's like the only thing you can describe people as. You're very pretty.
Yeah. It's just like there's nothing there.
Yeah.
But
so it's like a big sorority.
It's like a big sorority. There you go. Without making you sit on a laundry machine. I want to know where that rumor came from. If any sororities did that, let me know. I want to know.
I think I have a friend who was in but like I don't think it was that type.
Yeah.
I think it was more of like an academic.
Yeah. Like I know there was like chemistry sororities at Cornell, and there was like a lot of hazing with the frats too, and people kept dying. So I was like, maybe
kept dying.
Yeah, people
How
kept
many
dying? I think when I finally left, when I graduated, there was a case. There was like a murder trial happening because one guy, they tied him up or something, and they made him drink a lot, and they tied him up and like left him in a closet, and they're like, oh, he's gonna be fine. But he like died in that closet, and like a janitor discovered him, and it was like this whole mess. And there was a trial going on being like they murdered him And I remember that year there was like a whole talk on campus to ban Greek life, and everyone was so angry about it. And I was like, someone died.
I mean, I personally don't see the point, but
I don't see the point either.
I'm not a joiner, so I guess I'll never understand.
Yeah. What was it like being at Parsons? Because it's more of a city school. Campus.
It's I guess it's very unlike going to like a upstate college because well, for me, since I'm from here, I would go home. So there was no like dorm experience, which I'm pretty thankful for. And I guess it was a little, looking back, I guess it was a little lonely because I wasn't dorming. So I didn't have like that connection with my classmates until I did a study abroad. So yeah, it was like going to class and then going home, shit ton of schoolwork, and then doing it all over again.
Yeah. Where did you study abroad?
Paris.
Oh, that's amazing. I went to Paris for an art class. It was like Impressionism in Paris. So I loved it. It was like a week in Paris, and I was like, I love this so much. But I studied abroad in Copenhagen. Oh, nice. So that's why I was like, I love Copenhagen. I would live here.
Would you still live there?
Yeah, I think so. But I think the whole homogeny thing did get to me in the end of that semester, where I was like, I miss hearing other voices, basically. But I was thankful because I made friends. Like there was like this Japanese couple that lived in Copenhagen, and I felt like they were like the model that I wanted to model my life around. I was just like, oh, I could live here and still be happy.
Did you get to learn the language at all?
Well, they attempted to teach me. Like there was a Danish culture class, and I sucked at Danish. It's a hard language. I don't know. Apparently, my Danish buddy, they like have a buddy system in this program where they pair you up with a young person. And she was like way cooler than me. She was 18 at the time, and she was like into fashion. Also, she smoked cigarettes, and I was like, that's when I was like, oh, I should probably smoke cigarettes. And I was like, man, I hate this. I can't do it, because everyone in Denmark smokes because it's cold. I don't know, but I was like, oh, like I'm not good at this. And she was like criticizing Americans. She was just like, why are you guys so fat and like and stupid and blah, blah, blah. She was just like very blunt, and I was like, wow, she's so cool, because she's like just a blunt teenager. But she told me that whenever I spoke Danish, like when I tried to speak Danish, that I had a Chinese accent that I don't have when I speak English.
That's hilarious.
And she was like, I don't know why, but you sound like someone who's Chinese trying to speak.
Is it because you're looking at me, asshole?
I don't know. And I always thought, and I became really self-conscious about that. So I was like, oh shit, yeah.
I would never speak it again.
Exactly.
Is it worse to have a Chinese accent or to have an American accent? I wonder.
See, that's the thing that I learned recently, where I definitely have like some, I mean, I think we all do, like some trauma associated with Chinese accents. Because I recently went to a dialect coach to learn a Chinese accent. And
I think I saw something like that. Was it on your Facebook or something?
I don't know. Did I say it? I don't think I did, because I was just like, I didn't want to make a thing out of it. But I remember, and he was like this like white dude, and he was like so kind about it, surprisingly. He's like, I'm not your model for it. We're gonna use like zizang, and which was great. But the way when he would unlock things in my mouth, that sounds sexual. It's not. when he was just like, oh, place your tongue in this direction, make your mouth move like this. It was like all very technical, which I appreciated, instead of just
Was his name
like,
R. Kelly?
That's so funny. But I would start crying when like he would unlock my mouth, the tension in my mouth, because I think I've been like sensitized to what it feels like to have a Chinese accent, or when I see it and like how people react to it. So I feel like I almost like resisted that growing up, and now I don't have a Chinese accent. I don't know. Yeah, but I recently learned that a lot of trauma comes with accents.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily a bad thing to have a Chinese accent. So that's a good question.
It's just seems so broad when people say Chinese accent because there's so many Chinese accent. Like a person who's from like Beijing has such a different accent than someone who speaks Cantonese.
Yeah.
So it's like when someone asks you to do a Chinese accent, what do they mean? Do they even know?
Yeah. I usually react with a lot of anger. I'm just like, well, no, I'm not going to.
Right.
So that's why I was thankful to like go to an actual dialect coach and like hone in on the one. I'm still bad at it, but I'm just like, at least like I had that learning experience and to like move through that trauma. But yeah, especially as an actor, I feel like it's, like I just received a script I was telling you in the elevator where I asked like, oh, which part were you thinking? Because they just sent me like this long ass script and they're like, oh, well, there's one name that is Oriental. And I was like, what the fuck? 2019, we're still saying that.
Yep.
Yeah. So I didn't even respond. I don't even know how to respond.
So when you get scripts and they ask for a Chinese accent, are there ever times where you think that, I think the role does call for an accent, or do you?
Yeah, I think it depends on who the writer is.
Right.
Because I think it's important, like, the writer also has to understand why that's needed. Because if it was like, oh, this is story specifically about an immigrant,
Right,
and their experiences as an immigrant, I think that is valid and that's okay. But if it's just to have an accent for whatever, to like tokenize someone, then,
Right.
like, then I don't think that's...
just to make sure you understand you're looking at an Asian person.
Yeah, exactly.
Would you say that most of the time it is just to tokenize you?
I think
roles.
so. Yeah, especially when it comes from like a writer who's not Asian American or like of that background. I feel like I don't really trust them. I'm just
Right.
like, I don't think you. That's why I loved Crazy Rich Asians, because the writer was Asian or Chinese, I think, and she understood like this is the difference between being Chinese and Chinese American.
Did your parents see it?
No, not yet.
They haven't.
I want them to.
So
though.
my mom saw it and she didn't enjoy it at all.
That's what I've heard,
Yeah.
that like in China it didn't do well at all because they thought it was like stereotypical of like Chinese people.
Well, she thought it was really over the top and like a film for like Chokseng, like American born Chinese. So I was like, I mean, I thought it was a good time, but okay.
Yeah, I loved it. Oh man, yeah, that's something. I mean, but that goes into the broader conversation of like not all experiences are the same, and we also have different experiences, just like all these like white dudes do in every movie ever made.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
I don't feel the same things as Mark Wahlberg. It's true.
Oh God, I hate that guy. I mean, he like punched some dude, right? Like punched his eyeballs out.
I think he was maybe partially or legally blind to begin with, but I think he like damaged an eyeball.
But we still celebrate him.
Well, we use we.
We as in like, I don't know.
America, yes. America celebrates him for sure.
Yeah. That's sad.
My dad likes his movies.
Oh no. That sucks.
I think my dad puts politics aside when there's like action movies involved.
Yeah. Is there anything that's coming up for you that you want listeners to know about?
I mean, I wish I knew when Snakehead was debuting, because that's super exciting.
Yeah. I remember when they were filming in like Chinatown. And
Yeah.
I remember being really excited, and then I assumed it just came out.
The production was amazing. Like, they pulled off amazing things with that budget,
Oh my
I have to
gosh.
say.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Snakehead. One.
Snakehead for sure.
Yeah.
What else is going on this year? I hope to work on another movie soon. But other than that, what's next for me? I'm going to LA to work on the Grammys.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A couple of my clients are nominated, so that's
Are you allowed to name them?
exciting. Casey Musgraves, I think, is nominated for Album of the Year.
Oh, wow.
So that's really cool. She's such a great client. And Ariana Grande
Oh my
is
gosh.
also nominated.
Ariana. I love her. Love her songs.
She's a boss.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on. We're running out of
It
time.
was such a good time.
Where can people find you? Twitter, Instagram, or you can keep it totally
I
private?
have an Instagram, but it's like I hardly ever update it. I kind of just creep on other people, and sometimes I post work, but like, I don't know.
Yeah, you're not a big
I'm not a big social media person. I'm like, I just want to live life.
Yeah.
And it's not about followers.
It's not. It's not about followers. Oh, we could have a whole conversation about that. I'm also not that into social media. I work in social media, so I'm like, it's all fake.
Yeah.
It's all lies.
Yeah.
So, but do you have a website that people can go to, or
Nope.
no website?
Nope.
Oh man.
All on the low. But the Instagram is Bedford Street Laundry, all spelled out.
Okay. Cool. Yay. So you can check that out to see maybe some of her
Maybe a post once a year.
Yeah. And you can find Now in Color anywhere you get podcasts. We are Now in Color podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and now_in color on Twitter. And you can also follow Brick by Brick Studios on Instagram, Facebook, and also Google. I think you can Google it here. Yeah, but thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Yay.